Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to the latest edition of the We Can't Wrestle podcast. Nate Maxon, your host, here with you. This is a very special edition, an impromptu edition of the show. Just on Friday night, I had posted in our WNR Facebook group, I got to burr up my ass that I just wanted to do an impromptu show. Somebody come join me and let's record a podcast. And that's what we did, and I was very happy to have on the show a member of our Hall of Fame panel, here at the We Can't Wrestle podcast, author and podcast host of the Deathcast, a true crime podcast. Ian Totten was nice enough to join myself and Aron for about an hour-long conversation just about not just wrestling, a number of things, but we had a great time having Ian here on the show, so I'll get you to that here in just a minute. But before I do, I just want to let you know you can join us on Facebook at the WNR Podcast Network on Facebook. Look it up, join the group, we'll let you in. And, we do little things. Not only do you get updates on the podcast, but we have giveaways, we have different things like that, contests, fictional tournaments that my brother Aron does. And as you can hear, you can have the opportunity to even be on the show once in a while when the host is feeling froggy. So also join us on YouTube. I'm now putting our shows for the podcast network on YouTube, the WNR Podcast Network on YouTube. I just said YouTube like 6 times, but I just want to nail that home that we are available on the YouTubes at this point as well. So right now, let's just get into this conversation with myself, my brother Aron, and our esteemed guest for this week, Mr. Ian Totten. And I hope you enjoy it. There he is. Mr. Ian Totten is joining me.
Hello.
Just telling our listeners, hell, even if it's just you and me. I know I posted the post, pretty short notice on a Friday night, so people might either be doing something or ignoring me or what have you. But I just, me on a Friday night, hell, I'm at home. I'm way past going out.
I do the same thing every night. I hang out and talk with my Chinese teacher. So,
yeah, I've seen that. But Anyway, for those of you that don't know, this is Ian Totten. Ian is a noted author and host of the Deathcast, which is one of my favorite non-wrestling podcasts. How are things going with the Deathcast? I saw you had some really good listenership for your Jimmy Savile series.
I continue to be massively popular. I've signed to a podcasting network.
Awesome.
It's really a talent agency. They're helping me to make the show bigger and get it out to more people. I continue to be within the top 700 true crime podcasts in the U.S. So
amazing. There's a lot of true crime podcasts, so that's a hell of an accomplishment.
Yes, I was patting myself on the back today. I have more 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts than most of the pro wrestling podcasts out there from big names. So
that's awesome.
Little victories.
Yes, absolutely. Well, in the podcasting. Oh man, in the podcasting sphere, it's like everybody has a podcast,
so I know.
It's just if you can just ink out, like just with our shows, and I know, as compared to somebody like a Conrad Thompson or a Jim Cornette or Brian Last or whoever, we're just a blip on the radar. But if I see within the wrestling category that one of our shows consistently is in the top 150 even of wrestling podcasts, because like everybody has a show. So it whether or not it's making money or what have you, it's still an accomplishment to me. That means that people are coming back and listening to what you have to offer.
Yes, but people don't realize that podcasting is massively competitive. I can say that as far as what I do, the people in the true crime podcasting community are very similar to how they are in the author community, meaning that they support one another.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still competition because you have big companies like iHeartRadio and everything trying to get themselves involved.
Right.
And nobody wants to deal with them because, they consistently put out overproduced stuff that, my personal opinion and opinion of others that I know, it's might be a compelling story, but they're not telling the whole story. They're telling what they were told to tell.
Yeah, it's the it's like
A WWE produced documentary.
Yeah. I was about to say it's like network television as
Yes.
opposed to a gritty, good documentary that you'll find from an independent filmmaker. Just to put it in perspective.
Yes, it's very sanitized, and they're only telling one aspect of the story, and that's the one that they think the most people are going to swallow.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I even noticed because when I first started doing shows, because it was free and et cetera, I hosted my shows on Anchor.
Yeah.
And I've noticed since, because I don't use Anchor anymore, but they've switched over and Spotify bought Anchor.
Yeah.
So now I constantly get emails from them. Do you want to come to Spotify for podcasters? Do you want to come to Spotify for But I'm sure that if you get into Spotify for podcasters and you get to a certain listenership level, they probably are going to start butting in.
No, well, I'm actually my network. They moved me over to Zencaster.
Okay.
Because they get all the partnership stuff for free.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in with Apple for podcasters, Spotify for podcasters, and honestly, the biggest help that I've found is it gives me an idea of who's listening and where.
Right.
The demographics, but it also gives me access to their ad partnerships.
Right. Yeah, and I was going to say I shoot my feed is on Apple and it's on Spotify, but I actually use Red Circle as my server.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, like I said, I don't know if you actually host your show through Spotify, if it if you're gonna complicate things with a corporate kind of I don't know. I just
you can just open an account with them. My account would be different than one you would get because it was open for me, but you can just open an account for yourself for your podcast network, and to give you access to all your demographics as well as you can do Q&As. Things like that. Same with the Apple podcast. All they have to do is verify that you're you, and you get access to you can see reviews, get an idea of how long people are listening when they check out.
Which is always interesting to see. Red Circle shows me that too, and I like it when I see the listenership is and that's how I kind of figured, because when we first started doing these shows, man, they were way too long. Like I was doing 3-4 hour podcasts, and people fucking check out. No, I find that around an hour to an hour 15 is the safe number.
Yeah, but I've had a couple episodes where I've gone over with that, especially the last episode on Saville. Around about 45 minutes to an hour, I'm good. Anything longer than that, unless it's a one-off case, people get lost and they don't want to stick around.
Yeah. The best thing to do with something like that is to break it up into parts. Like with
what I did.
With our show last year, we did that. I got out one of my PWI 500s, the first one, and we went through the whole thing from 500 to number one.
Mm-hmm.
If it would have been one podcast, it would have been like 9 hours long. But breaking it up into 1.5 to 2 hour parts, I noticed that it was much more digestible for people.
And that's what I do. I do multiple recordings a week. Like I'm on the road a lot lately.
Mm-hmm.
So I just bring my equipment with me and I sit in the hotel room. If I'm not talking to my Chinese teacher, I'm recording. It passes the time while I'm on the road, and I get, my content out and get a couple weeks ahead.
Yeah, I noticed that you were learning Chinese on TikTok.
Yes. Yeah, that's my best friend. Big supporter of the show. She does ads on the show now.
Okay.
So she supports my show. I support her. That's why I post it everywhere, because she's trying to grow. I'm trying to grow. So.
Yeah, and it's I know last time you and I did any kind of a show together, we discussed TikTok a little bit, and I was so hesitant, and I still haven't made the jump. My wife keeps telling me, she's like, just do it.
She's my Jessica, my Chinese teacher. She's the only reason I'm on there. I'm the administrator for her page.
Okay.
We have moderators, and then there's me. And they basically follow what I set out. And it's all TikTok. I ignore it most of the time, but I honestly, a big portion, unfortunately, you get a lot of people that are trying to get in her pants, and that's not why she's there.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm there, to make sure that crap doesn't get said.
Fucking creeps on the internet. Just like,
oh yeah.
It's one of the funniest things to me. We haven't even touched on wrestling yet, which is fine. But one of the funniest things to me is you'll see like some page, there's some goof created. I'm just going to use this example. The last one I saw, somebody creates a page that they're like, I'm Stephanie McMahon, and then there's like they post pictures of Stephanie McMahon or Tori Wilson or whoever it is, and there's literally like guys in the comments going, hey baby, I love you, baby. Like, you're not talking to Stephanie McMahon.
It's worse
than Aaron's here.
Oh, sorry.
No worries. What's going on, Aaron?
And my favorite ones, and I'm not making fun of them, are the guys that don't, like, English isn't their first language. So it'll be like Tori, like the Tori Wilson will post some picture, and it'll be like, "Ooh, glorious babe,
Oh,
nice
stuff.
mounds, me want to love you." And it's like, what are you talking?
No, we've got a guy that we kicked out because he was messaging all of her supporters to try and get him to go to somebody else. And the dude's like freaking he's got like 300 accounts. He's gotten my phone number. He's called me on the phone. It's like, don't fuck with me, dude. I know people. I have friends that are private investigators. I'll make your life miserable. Go away. People are mental.
Yes, they are. It's Babs and Vagine.
Oh no, much worse than that. I mean, if you saw the list of words and phrases that I've blocked, you'd be like, holy shit. Every guy. Oh, are you married? Do you have a boyfriend?
The other thing too is, I don't know what started this conversation. I don't want to monopolize it or whatever, but the other thing that cracks me up is the internet guys out there or whatever. They'll say like, and I'm not knocking any female wrestlers. I'm not, okay, but they're like, female wrestlers are the greatest athletes. It's the best they've ever been. They're athletes. You should respect them. And then when you get on these pages, it'll just be like she'll post a female wrestler will post a picture of herself, and it's not like, oh, you're very athletic, that's a nice picture. It's like, I love your mounds. I want to. It's, you know what I mean?
Oh no, the best one of those I saw was on a Tessa Blanchard post. Some guy, I met you at such and such convention. I met you at such a convention. Would you want to go out? And there was like 40 guys that are like, are you serious? Are you that pathetic?
Like, I like that Sky Blue girl.
Of it. It was so pathetic. I took screenshots of it because, like, you have to remember me.
Like that Sky Blue girl. I've never seen her work or whatever.
Yeah,
and I'd never heard of her. But like, one picture of her ass gets out there, and then that's all she is now. It's just like, Jesus. But I don't know if that makes sense.
And then there's, like I said, then there's a bunch of comments of guys going, I love you, sweet Sky. Like, Sky Blue's actually looking at their comments. But it's like, you're pathetic, man.
Oh, they are.
I did see pathetic. Like, the reason I say mounds is I actually saw the guy post that. He said, I love your mounds. Whoa, that's gross, dude. I don't know what part you're talking about.
You love my coconut chocolate bar? What is that?
No,
I don't know what.
these guys, you see them, and it's like they'd never say this shit in real life. What the hell gives you the right to go online and say this thing to this person you've never met?
They wouldn't
And
know
they,
how to talk to any girl.
well, the
No.
craziest thing is like if you go to conventions, the people that are the dirtiest and creepiest are the ones that are the most like the forwardest. They're the most forward. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah, the ones that are hugging the girls and they look like they'd rather be anywhere else, like possibly
yeah,
in prison, than be standing next to this guy that hasn't bathed in 9 months.
he looks like he hasn't brushed his teeth since 1996, and
Yeah,
probably smells like onions and patchouli. Yeah,
yeah.
like
What needs to happen? What needs to happen? A lot of these ladies. I almost called them gals. This isn't the 50s. A lot of these ladies like date dudes that are in the business. One time it needs to happen that one of these fucking slugs puts their hands on this girl and he just picks her up and like he just picks him, like her boyfriend just picks him up and puts him through a table, like literally. Like it'll never happen again.
Yeah.
Like it just needs to happen.
Oh, well, then you see these guys that remember a couple of years ago, one of the WWE girls ended up freaking a guy broke into her house.
Yeah, that DeVille chick, wasn't that her?
Yeah, I don't know their names. You know, I know Rhea Ripley and Asuka.
I think it was Sonya Deville, and I think uh Mandy Rose was even staying over there.
Yeah.
And it's like Jesus Christ. And like they don't, and I'm sure AEW does the same thing, but the WWE doesn't let them, like,
well, and
if you're a diva, you have to travel with a guy. Like you don't get, like, two divas can't, or I keep going, no, two female wrestlers aren't allowed to like travel just together. Like if you're a female, you're on the road with a guy because
it's the same principle as anyone that's in any kind of a entertainment or a service of any kind. Like that, when that person's on the clock, they're paid to be nice to you. That doesn't mean they like you. I mean, Aron knows because he's my brother, obviously, and Ian probably knows because we're friends on Facebook. My wife's a fairly attractive woman.
Mm-hmm.
And she works with the public. Her business is with the public. And you don't know how many times it's just like, because she's nice to a customer, then that customer thinks it's carte blanche for them to flirt with her. And it's like, she's not flirting with you. She's just doing her fucking job. If she wasn't on the clock, she wouldn't even notice that you existed.
Yeah. See, I'm a prick 24/7. I don't hide it. What you see is what you get.
well, it's because when we're nice to somebody, they don't think we're like into them.
No, yeah. I'm myself 24. I don't care if I'm at work or I'm out on the street or online. If it's in my head and I say it, it's because I feel it.
It's just coming out. Yeah.
Yes. There's a filter there. I don't say everything, I think, but I say the shit.
But to touch on, I shouldn't use that after the conversation we just had,
Don't
but
do that.
to talk about wrestling a little bit. I know, Ian, you're kind of like me and Aron, where you're very passive about the modern product. I watch. I don't watch anything live anymore. I watch it all after the fact because if I want to be able to fast forward through it. I mean, if I'm going to watch Raw or Dynamite or whatever, it's going to take me a third of the time that the show actually runs because I'm only going to watch what I'm interested in. Is there anything in the modern product right now that's got your attention?
The only guy I'm paying attention to in the modern product is Logan Paul.
Okay.
I think he's friggin' phenomenal. He's a prick in real life. It comes across on the camera. He's massively athletic. I personally think he needs to tone that down before he severely injures himself.
Right.
But he's got it. You know, that intangible.
And I know it's gonna. You guys might not think so. It may sound like a silly comparison to some people, but when I think of him, what I think of is Trish Stratus, because Trish Stratus also had no right to be anywhere as good as she was. You know, she came in, she was a fitness model. as far as pro wrestling goes, she had no right to be the star that she became, and I think I put him on that level. If what I'm saying makes sense.
And I hate the hate on him. For one, he does a good job. He looks like an athlete because he is an athlete, but he's a hell of a worker, and he doesn't. How do I say it? Like, he's not disrespectful to the wrestling business either. Like, he didn't get into it just because it was something to do and like joking around, and you like see the smirk on his face when he's doing it. For as much as Mike Tyson liked wrestling, Tyson was doing it because it was fun. You know what I mean? You could even see him smirking when the DX stuff was happening and everything like that. Logan Paul takes it serious, and I put that on. I posted on our page about something like that, and this guy was like, "Well, we don't want any more part-time champions." It's like, if you look back at the '80s, how often was Hulk Hogan on TV? Like, literally, like wrestling
Never.
on TV. Logan Paul could be on the show every single week, but he doesn't need to be in the arena every single week. He can cut a promo somewhere, and they can just play it. You know what I mean? So that aspect of it, I think, is when somebody said that, I was like, that's just them grasping because they can't. How do I say it? They can't get around the fact that the dude's athletic and is doing a good job.
That and the modern, like we said about the guys trying to talk to girls on the internet, they wouldn't say anything to somebody's face, and that's the problem with the modern wrestling fan too. Is I don't understand. Like we were just talking about, I watch a show. I don't watch very much of it. I watch what I like, and then I get past it. I don't understand people that hate watch pro wrestling. Why are you wasting your time and your precious time on this planet watching something you so obviously don't like, or you do like it and you're just posting stuff on the internet to get a reaction from people? You know what I mean? It's just like,
that's why I don't watch any of it.
Mm-hmm.
I've watched Logan Paul, a couple of his matches. That's it. Because there's nothing going on that I'm interested in. There's nobody that, when I was going to wrestling shows, I'd pay money to see because I believed in them. All right, there's nobody I've seen wrestling, except maybe Brock Lesnar, that I think is going to take Greg Valentine.
Right.
You know, he's my favorite wrestler. There's nobody I think's would have a wrestling match and was, gonna beat him, because they're all tiny little sissy boys.
And that's the thing that happens to me is there's times where I try, like I really do, because I'm a wrestling fan and I want the business to always exist, and I want it to always, I want the boys that are in it, because there's no disrespect to them. They do something I can't do. I'm never in any way disrespecting them. The product that's presented now isn't the product that, I'm old man yelling at the clouds now, but seriously, I'll sit down and be like, all right, this week I'm gonna give Dynamite a chance, and then I get about 45 minutes into Dynamite, and I'd find myself, I'd much rather watch a Monday Night Raw from 1994 that I've already seen 3 or 4 times. Actually, that was something I was going to say to you guys. I was going to ask you if there's anything you're currently watching, like you're
rewatching Mid-South.
What was the question?
Just whatever, Aaron, the question was whatever you're currently, like, what you're watching, what you're power watching or whatever. Ian said he's watching Mid-South.
Smoky Mountain.
I'm weird.
I'm always watching like old WWE, but like non-network stuff or whatever. Right now I'm going through and just watching all of Smoky Mountain again.
Yeah, I've got the Mid-South from tail end of 81 on a drive that somebody gave me. So I'm right about the point where Stagger Lee's about to come in because of DiBiase.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how many times I've seen this stuff, but it's still more entertaining than anything going on today.
Oh, no fucking doubt. 2 things for me. Okay, so, and Aaron knows this. I don't know if you and I have ever talked about it, Ian, but I have, call it what you want to call it. I call it my wrestling fetish. I am a fan of two things. I love watching a company in transition,
Mhm.
and I love watching a territory die. I don't know why. I just like, it's because it's you watch them throwing shit against the wall and stuff. Like right now, I'm watching the WWF from mid 93 until the tail end of 94, early 95, just because it's that transitional period. You know, they're transitioning out of the Hogan era and they're just throwing shit against the wall to see what sticks. And I don't know, for me, watching something like that, I think that's why 97 is my favorite year in like big time pro wrestling, just because WWF's in that transition. They don't know what the fuck they want to be from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. It's a completely different company, and it's so fascinating to watch it happen.
Yeah,
A transition that doesn't get talked about enough, though, I think, and it's because not a lot of eyes were on it right away, was the minute they were able to announce that Hulk Hogan was coming to WCW, it's like
the whole
they had to
everything.
end the stuff they were doing, but now Hogan's showing. It was just a weird little company at that point because they were still doing, like, it was still like Bunkhouse Buck
Mhm.
and shit like that, you know. But then like here's Hogan and Savage, and
And
it was
and guys like Rick Rude are like, peace, I'm out.
yeah. Then you see the writing on the wall and this shit. I'm out of here, you know. But
Rude's like,
it
I'm
just
gone. Steamboat's like, I'm done. Yeah.
yeah, it's just it's a weird thing to watch in that company because it's like it's the tale of two WCWs at like the same time it's going on. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, they
Like
were telling.
Vince, it used to be they would have to figure out how to change because they lost the guy. You know what I mean? This time it was like we got to figure out how we're gonna do this, and we still got now we got the guy. It's
Mhm.
just a different. It's a weird. 94 is a weird time in WCW.
Well, it's like ECW. I was a fan of it from the time roundabouts the time Heyman took over. And it was still bar wrestling when he took over.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see the transition over the course of about a year and a half of now they're running in the ECW arena, and it's not just Sabu and the Public Enemy doing their crazy things on the TV, and there's none of the shtick that Eddie Gilbert had. You know, the whole
Mm-hmm.
King of frickin' Philadelphia crap that was just god awful.
Yeah.
There's no.
When we went through, probably like, let's say, let's just say from April of like 94 until now we're into February of 96 on Reliving the Extreme.
Yeah.
And you just especially through 94 and 95, you watch that transition of Paul Heyman. And then now we're getting into the point where Paul Heyman's going to start pushing Todd Gordon out too.
Yeah.
So Todd Gordon's influence is going away.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I don't know about you, Ian. I think ECW peaked at Barely Legal.
Oh yeah, it did.
And then
Everything after that was just they lost whatever they had going into it.
like we're going through 96 right now, and I was excited to get to it because 96 is actually my favorite year in that company.
95, 96 is my favorite year in that company. That's when I went to the majority of the shows.
Okay.
Like I was on Stick to Wrestling we were talking about when one of the shows I went to. That's the vibe at that point was still a lot of the old fans mixed in with some of the newer who had gotten involved in it because of the dirt sheets and tape traders.
Mm-hmm.
By the time Barely Legal happened, a good majority of the fans were these dirt sheet readers who didn't know the product from the start. They only knew the tapes that they'd seen. And they started to change the whole vibe of the crowd. Whereas before, people there wanted to see wrestling. They didn't care, if somebody brought out a table, that was awesome.
Right.
But the people that came in from the dirt sheets, that's all they wanted to see, which is when you started seeing the stuff like New Jack diving off of balconies. Cool to see it once or twice, but after you see it once or twice, or you see him frickin' take a scalpel to somebody, it's like, okay,
yeah,
what's next?
Yeah, and that is what that is a very important thing to discuss. I think that's an important thing to discuss in the history of the business because to me, and I know you guys too, and we're all kind of in the same age group. I lived through the Attitude Era.
Yeah.
And when you were living through the Attitude Era, it was cool as shit. But you look back on it now and you realize that from 1998 till 2001 is when the business blew its fucking wad. Because in that 3-year period, they did everything you're ever going to possibly do. And since then, it has just been the ghost of the Attitude Era.
Yeah, and that's honestly, I can't watch any of the Attitude Era because it's like, it's too much.
Yeah, I get to 99 and I'm out. I'm like, I can't do 99. I just can't do it. I can't do it.
I left for boot camp right after Owen Hart died. I watched the freaking pay-per-view live. Went to boot camp. I didn't think about wrestling again until I got out. I got out in 2003. I'd seen everything. All right, now they've killed a guy live on television. There's not much more you can do.
Right, the ultimate angle, brother.
Yeah.
I mean,
I got back in.
I can still watch it, but I like ridiculous shit, and there's a lot of ridiculous shit, and I can still watch it. You guys ever heard of the show? Have you guys ever heard of the show? Not to change the subject, but the Great American Baking Show. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
I've heard of
the only reason I'm saying
I've heard of the British baking show. My wife watches the British one.
Well, there's a Great American one, and the only reason I'm bringing it up is because my Roku is scanning and it's on its screensaver, so it's showing you shit that you can watch. And this is one of the things. And I looked up for a second, I'm like, Nick Khan's on the Great American Bake Show. There's this dude that looks like WWE Nick Khan. I'm like, what the fuck? It's not him, but it looks like him. Anyway. Sorry.
No worries.
It's the squirrel brain I have.
Yeah. Oh, no worries. I'm talking with you guys, and my teacher's messaging me, asking me how their show's going.
Well, that was the point of this anyway. It was just to get a few people together and shoot the shit.
Yeah.
So no specific topic or anything.
No.
But yeah, like I said, the Attitude Era. Again, it's so funny because, like I said, you look back on it and you're like, man, when it was happening, I was so excited because it was so much different than what I watched as a kid and blah, blah, blah. And then now you watch it back and it's like, man, this is where it ended. This is where it died.
Well, not only that, you didn't feel like a dork going out in public with your wrestling shirt on.
Right, yeah.
Everybody was wearing them. Everybody was wearing them.
And the main thing is if I know people talk about WCW, when Russo went there, it's if you want to see what the Attitude Era what Vince Russo would have been without Vince McMahon, people say that. Yeah. It's watch WCW. I wouldn't even go further than saying, because even then there was Kevin Sullivan and a couple other and Mike Graham and a couple other people, I want to tell people, if you want to see what Vince Russo is really like without a Vince McMahon, you got to watch when he starts with TNA. Because I tried watching some early TNA because I didn't get used to watch that shit because I couldn't afford a fucking pay-per-view every week. And I watched this shit and I'm like, this is schizophrenic and just out of control. And it's there's a Dusty Rhodes a Dusty Rhodes promo that I had never seen because I never watched it. And Dusty Rhodes shows up and he's cut, and I'm not gonna say verbatim what he says, but there's one through point that he keeps bringing up. He'll say, and then we had this and this and like, he's like, it was me and Harley Race and Ric Flair and me, and he's like going through the lineage of wrestling, and he's like, and what do we have now? A midget beaten off in a trash can. And then he's
Hey,
like,
that
and then there was this, and then there was that, and I wrestled a Big Bubba and Jim Cornette, and now we got a midget beaten off in a trash can. And he says it like 5 times.
but you know what? You know what? Dusty in that promo, I've never seen it, but in that promo, he encapsulated what happened to the business. We had all this greatness and all this wonder and the wonder of the wrestling business, and now we have a midget beaten off in a trash can.
Beaten off in a trash can.
I can't even speak too much TNA. I never really watched that promotion, even when they were trying to push it hard. I just never, I don't know.
Now they're trying to change their name back, and it's like, guys, it's not your name. It is not your name.
Yeah, it's not the name that needs to change.
And then Billy Corgan, he had something good going on, and then he just became just another wrestling company, and started doing sports entertainment, which I don't have a problem with sports entertainment, but it's like, don't say you're going to be something different, and then you just roll into being like, you have ICP on there now, and you're doing this, and you're doing that. And every guy falls into that. They're like, we're going to be the real alternative. We're going to be wrestling. And then it's like, they're good for like 6 months, and then they're like, oh, well, we got to start doing it this way now. And
I'll say this, and I don't know if, anybody listening, if you want to check it out, if you guys want to check it out, if you don't, that's fine too. Just speaking to my own thing right now, like I said earlier about like Monday Night Raw, if I watch it, I watch, like, if it's a 3-hour show, I see 45 minutes of it without fast forwarding, et cetera, et cetera. The show, to be honest with you, and it does have its flaws because every wrestling show has its flaws, but actually the best wrestling show right now that I can actually a lot of times watch from beginning to end, or mostly from beginning to end on YouTube every week, I watch OVW. OVW is actually really good right now. It's booked kind of like a territory. Al Snow's in charge of it. And again, it has its goofy shit, but wrestling's always had its goofy shit. You know what I mean? There's always going to be something. There's always going to be something. Even the promotion you absolutely love, you're going to be like, well, that was stupid. But because nobody's perfect. But OVW is, the past couple of years, has actually been pretty fucking consistent. I have actually enjoyed it.
I don't think I've ever watched it.
I've seen some stuff from it, and the reason I think, Nate, that it's like that is because Al Snow's not an idiot. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he's been in the wrestling business for who knows how long now. 40 years.
He's been in what, since at least the early 90s. At least the early 90s.
Well, even way before that.
Yeah, he started wrestling on the independent circuit some point in the 80s.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's been in the business for if he hasn't been in the business 40 years, it's really, really close.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say he's not stupid, it's the fact that he knows that, he's not going to compete with Vince McMahon or not. It's not even Vince McMahon anymore, but you know what I mean? Like, a lot of these guys, they get the itch, and then they're like, oh, we're going to get bigger, we're going to get badder, and we're going to take over the world. And he's like, how about we just worry about our shit? And
yeah, literally their TV show comes from the same little arena every week. I don't know if it's still the Davis Arena. They've got it souped up now if it is, but it comes from the same little arena every week. And, sometimes they show you stuff from like one of their big shows that they do or whatever, but it's more like a territory style. And again, they have some sports entertainment stuff. It's 2023. You're not ever going to have Bill Watts Mid-South again, unfortunately. It just is what it is. But they have, I really, that's like probably my favorite modern wrestling show just to sit down and watch anyway.
But I'm sure Al is probably like, I'm going to do this enough to where, for one, I'm sure he's probably training guys, so he's getting paid that way.
Oh yeah.
But it's like, how about we do that? Like, he's probably running his company like, hey, what's going to keep the lights on, let me live comfortably, and let these kids wet their beak and maybe get some eyes on them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not like we're gonna get on the CW network, or we're gonna get on here, or we're gonna get on there. It's like, nah, let's just make an honest living, and more people need to be like that. And I think we'd have a healthier, more
and you're right. And
entertaining independent league.
And in 2023, it's not 1993. In 2023, in the pro wrestling business, the WWE is the NFL. You are never going to take down the WWE at this point. So don't even look at that as a goal. You know what I mean? Like you said, Aaron, you say you're going to be an alternative, be an alternative. Like
how long was Tony Khan? Sorry.
Like for me, I don't like AEW, but I don't begrudge anybody that does. If that's the shit they like to watch, let them watch it. You know what I mean? Who cares?
But like I was just say, like when they first started, I didn't watch a lot of it, but weren't they trying to be like, we're going to be the alternative, and we don't care about what the WWE does or whatever?
Oh, yeah.
And that lasted like 5 months, and then it was like, oh, now we got to worry about what they're doing. It's like, just do you and have your fans and be okay. And he's gonna spend himself out of the fucking business. It's just gonna happen, and it's just. Go ahead, sorry.
You're talking about Tony Khan, or did I mishear?
Oh yeah.
No, I was just saying. I think he's eventually gonna spend himself out of the business.
He is what the Attitude Era would have been without Vince McMahon, full blown.
Yeah, I have literally. That's funny that you say that, because I have literally called AEW Vince Russo's afterbirth.
It is. It's WCW 2003 if it had existed. Nothing makes. I don't watch it. I hear Cornette talk about it. I've seen snippets here and there. Nothing is serious. Nothing matters. It's all a great big joke because nobody in the company takes anything they're doing seriously, because they all grew up on this mentality of it has to be fun and all inclusive. No, you want people to want to stab your bad guys.
And they tell nothing. They tell no long-term stories.
No,
they tell no, like they had for me, and I think obviously I watch more of it than you do just because I watch it casually. But I'm just going to use as an example how I don't remember how long ago, because like you said, it's like AEW has no focus, so you can't remember when anything actually happened. But however long ago it was, they had built up the thing with MJF and Wardlow.
Mm-hmm.
Wardlow was like MJF's heavy, and et cetera, et cetera. And eventually, Wardlow, the heavy, is tired of MJF, the heel shit, and he turns on MJF and turns babyface, and the crowd's into him and everything. That's a story that if booked properly in a pro wrestling mindset, you could have told over a period of 2 years. They told it in like 3.5 months.
Well, yeah, because everything's rushed, and he's got the mentality of freaking, somebody with ADHD that's on coke, and he assumes that
I call him the snowman.
That he assumes that his fans have that same mindset, and most of them do, because most of them are much younger than, anybody who's gonna have the money to spend on all their products.
Mm-hmm.
And
you see that everything tanking.
And there's a reason that, there's a reason the Four Horsemen were special. Okay? Or there's a reason when talking about Mid-South, there's a reason the Rat Pack was special.
Yeah.
And it's because they were the stable in the company.
Yes. And if there wasn't
AEW, everybody's in a fucking stable. Everybody.
Yeah,
even like the baby faces, they're in a stable. The baby face shouldn't be in a stable because you shouldn't need people to watch his back.
Yeah, it's like
he can have friends. He can have friends, but it shouldn't be a stable.
Instead of wrestling, it's like rollerball. Everybody's on a team.
Yeah, it's like, what the fuck is going on?
Well, that tells you where he's stuck mentally. He's stuck in that gang warfare era of WWF mixed with ECW. You
And it's
know,
fucking lazy. They're like, oh, we got this guy. What are we gonna do with him? I don't know. Let's just put him with Jericho.
yeah. I mean, you look
Like,
back at that stuff, and most of it's unwatchable at this point. And from everything I've heard, the stuff they're doing now is unwatchable. It doesn't.
Yeah, well, I mean, just like, and I know it was immensely successful, especially from a merchandising standpoint. But if you look at the NWO was really only super entertaining for about 6 months.
Yeah, but it had stars. They don't have
Right.
any
Yes.
stars.
Yeah. But once they started like putting, Buff
everybody.
Bagwell and whoever in it, it just
Actually, I would. That this is gonna sound surprising because I know I bash on the guy a lot, but I was gonna say like the entries into it. Buff was the one that like the last one I had no problem with because if you're gonna have a faction of guys that are like Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Hulk Hogan, X Pac, if you're gonna have that type of crew, you need a Buff Bagwell. You know what I mean? You need a guy that's gonna go out there and lose.
Yeah, you
Like
need a toad.
if
Yeah,
Buff
you're
Bagwell,
right. You need a toady or two. Yeah.
yeah. So like a Buff and a Vincent, it's like okay, I can dig that. But then after you got past that, I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't know
You
about
got
this.
now we got Stevie Ray and Brian Adams, and they're another
Yeah,
NWO, and
Yeah.
God.
because like even the Horsemen, they were ball strong, and I know people wouldn't think this way, but JJ was their toe. Like he was the guy that was gonna get beat up. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And he did a great job at it. So I'm not even
Yeah.
knocking it. And even
Yeah,
Bobby, you
JJ
know,
and Tully. Tully got his ass kicked continuously by Magnum TA unless they were in a group.
yeah.
But
Yeah,
now it's all they have too many people and nobody knows what they're doing. Not that I could book the thing, but it's obvious from you could just look at their numbers to tell that nobody in that company is putting any thought into it.
right. Well, and the that you guys, we brought up the Horsemen, so I'll ask the question. I know we'll wrap up here in a few.
All right.
But I guess okay, let's do this. The last question I'll have for this one, and we should definitely do this again. I like this. Just randomly get together and shoot the shit. Maybe next time if I like I told Ian, if I give people more notice. I just decided to do this on the spur of the moment tonight. So, but if I give people more notice, maybe we'll get more participants. But anyway,
Either that or they should be on their fucking toes and be ready at all times.
the Horsemen. We brought it up. Do you guys think? Do you agree with me anyway that the Horsemen never should have been resurrected after Flair left in '91? I think it watered it down. It may have even been watered down after the initial
I don't think it should
incarnation.
have been.
I understand why they
I don't
rolled
think
with
it should. I don't think it should have been resurrected. I mean, yeah.
It became
I was
less
gonna say
special.
Arn. Like to me, it's like it wasn't even just him leaving. It was like when Arn and Tully left. It's like that's just. It's just it. You know, like the bloom was off the rose or whatever, and it shouldn't have. It's just it was lazy booking. It kept trying to go back and it's like you can't now. You know, like if Tully would have been able to come back, maybe, but it wasn't the same, and it was just let's find a guy that kind of looks like Tully. You know what I mean? And I know he wasn't the most important member of the Horsemen, but the Horsemen
No,
are kind of like the Beatles. They all serve their purpose, and you like Ringo might not be everybody's favorite Beatle, but the Beatles wouldn't have been the Beatles without Ringo. You know what I mean? that type of thing. So
That's
I think once they got split up because of Aron and Tully leaving, that should have just been it.
For me, it's when Ole left. That should have been it. The second incarnation was like DX without Michaels to me. Because Ole gave them that air of legitimacy because of his promos and the way he was in the ring. There was nothing about him that said this guy's fake.
That was the question I was going to ask you guys, because it's like when you think, okay, it's crazy to think about this. And I actually heard the reason that I got to thinking about it was I heard this stat from when I was listening to Between the Sheets, and they were talking about they were talking about 87. And you know how fucking Kellner and Bix get. It's like now we've all of a sudden we're spending 20 minutes on one guy. But anyway, when you think of the Horsemen, because they made me think about this. When you think of the Horsemen, Aaron, what do you think of when you think of the Four Horsemen? I'm going to say Four Horsemen. Who are they?
Just right off the top of my head.
Yep. Boom.
I think of Flair. I think of Flair, Arn, Tully, and Barry.
Ian.
Flair, Arn, Tully, and Ole.
Crazy thing, and this tells you the level of performance that the guys that you guys just mentioned. The longest running formation of the Horsemen was the one with Sid in it. That was the one that actually lasted the longest. So when you think about the ones that you guys are thinking of, those performers are fucking amazing. So amazing that, they only had a run as the Horsemen for like 6 months. You know what I mean? Together. It's crazy to think about that. In 6 months, those four guys made that much impact.
Well, that's like I was saying about, DX after Michaels left. When X-Pac joined, it was cool. You got the New Age Outlaws, okay, when, they were officially made members. But after, that, it just, every new member or person leaving just watered it down to the point where it was like, who cares? I don't even want to watch them anymore.
Yep. Same principle as I was talking about with the NWO. It was just like at a certain point, the shit has a shelf life.
They jumped the shark, and it's no longer what it was because it doesn't have the two guys that made it to begin with. For me, you got rid of Ole. Okay, the next incarnation was good, but it wasn't as good as the first. I don't care how good.
And
work.
And that goes back to something when I said about living through the Attitude Era. For those of you that are younger, that listen to our shows, that maybe have seen it in retrospect, or just remember when they were, the goofy DX from 2006 or whatever, you can't imagine how cool it was to live through the formation of DX. Like, that shit, I don't care, man. That shit was fucking cool. Like watching that when Hunter and Sean first hooked up, from the moment that happened until after WrestleMania 14, that was I will die on the hill that those two, no matter how much of a pain in the ass they were or whatever, that was some of the most fun fucking wrestling ever on television.
It was organic, and it was as real. It was as real as wrestling could have been had been at the time on TV. You know what I mean? Like, Brett and Shawn Michaels were legitimately feuding with each other.
Like fucking hate legit you. Real life.
I fucking hate you. So like it was like Hogan and Savage later on didn't get along, but going into like, it's one of the greatest wrestling stories ever told is WrestleMania 4 to WrestleMania 5. But it's not like they legitimately hated each other. You know what I mean? They were friends at that point. But Brett and Shawn they fucking hated each other. And that's what made it so much fucking better. And also shows to the professionals they were, because they never actually hurt each other. But I just, the Triple H and Shawn Michaels as DX is one of the most organic things that's ever came about. And the Horsemen was organic too. Like, they didn't set out saying, oh, we're going to create the Four Horsemen. It was just one night these guys were all on the same team, and it was like, oh look, all the champions are on the same team, and it just was like,
I'll say this for
there we go.
I'll say this for the record. And as a person, as a human being, I'm glad that he got his life together and he cleaned himself up for his kids and his wife and everything. But I've rarely been more entertained watching pro wrestling than watching Shawn Michaels fucked up on live television.
Yes.
Just fucked up on live television. Like,
and
go out, you're on in 10, Sean. All right, let me drink this beer and take these somas, and I'll be out there to give you the best shit you've seen all week.
And you know who enjoyed it more than you? And I can guarantee he did?
Hunter?
Yes. You know why? Because he was on TV laughing at it.
Yes. And he was also thinking, I'm sure he was thinking, because Hunter's the ultimate politician, eventually this guy's going to spiral out of fucking control and I'm going to slide right in there and take his spot.
But no, I just guarantee you that when Sean's like, you've seen sunny days, and like Sean's like mooning people and shit, Hunter wasn't hamming it up. He was like, this shit's fucking funny as shit. Like, it's like it was two best friends that basically figured out that we can pretty much do what we want to do as long as we don't hurt somebody, and he's not going to do anything to us. You know what I mean? Like, and what I don't know what picture Sean has of Vince or whatever, but it's always been that way. So
yeah.
Well, we are going to wrap this up, guys. Firstly, because I said it would be about an hour. Secondly, because at this point my bladder's full and I got to piss. But
I need to take a shower and go to the bar anyway.
But Ian, Aron, yeah, thanks for being here like you always are. Ian, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. It was a fun conversation. It's always cool to get together. And if you want to, just real quick, as we close out here, if you want to let everybody know where they can find you and find your products and find your fine podcasts and such.
All right. Thank you for having me. First off, you can find me on every social media platform you can think of. Just look for the Deathcast or Deathcast Pod. And you can find Deathcast on every podcast app there is. I'm on about last count about 250 podcast apps. So look for it. You can find me. You can find me. It's even on YouTube. I'm everywhere. It's like a plague.
And yeah, and I am not. I can say this, and this is the honest to God truth, folks. And Aron knows. Although sometimes I do enjoy watching or looking at a documentary or something about crime or whatever, I am in no way, shape, or form a true crime guy, kind of in the way that Aron and Ian are. But what I will say is Ian's podcast is the one true crime podcast that I actually legit listen to. I'm not blowing smoke. He knows I'm not, because I just love the way it's presented. And like you were saying earlier, Ian, when we were discussing at the beginning, the details. A lot of times I'm turned off by true crime stuff because it's so sanitary and it's so watered down, and you just don't get the details. The devil is in the details, for real. So I definitely recommend the Deathcast to anybody that's listening to this show that is interested in true crime.